Hey friends, welcome to today's live stream, my digital darkroom, so to speak. I'm Jason Odell. My Substack is The Photographer's Perspective, and I really appreciate you guys joining in today. Thought it would be nice to do something artistic for a change and not, worry too much about other things for at least a little while. So, thanks again if you're joining into the chat. Try to pay attention on a slightly different screen, so I'm not ignoring you. It's just I'm not the best at multitasking, so thanks again. Let's see. If I can get everything technical working out today, we should be great. So what I wanted to do today was go through and take a look at a photo that I captured actually a few years ago now. This was 2021 out in Badlands National Park. And I've been looking through those images because I've got a photo safari to Badlands National Park coming up in September of this year. And got a few people already signed up. And today happens to be the last day to get early bird discount pricing on that safari. So the kinds of stuff that you like doing landscape photography, the image I show today will be the kinds of photos that you can get on that particular trip. So it should be pretty cool. All right, let's take another look here and see how how we're doing. I'm going to jump over to my screen. Okay, I don't need all that stuff on there. And I am not sure why that is on my screen. Get away. Do this. I know what I'm going to do. Let's try that. Okay, great. All right, we have my screen now. Very cool. And I'm in Lightroom because that's what I happen to use. And this is the photo sort of as it came out of my camera. And what I want to do, this is a typical landscape. This is one of the spots I take my clients to in the Badlands. And so this is where we're going to go. And this is what I'm going to work on. Let's start off by taking a look at the exposure on this picture. So I'm in the develop module of Lightroom. Let's get this very clear. Go back to my library for a second. Let's take a look at this image metadata. So this was back in, when was this? 2021, September 1st of 21. And I was with a group then that week too. And this was with a camera that I don't have anymore, but I was using it at the time, the Nikon Z7 II. And I shot this with the Nikon 14 to 30 millimeter f4S lens. So it's a Z lens. And you'll notice that I set the exposure to be +1, which seems a little bit weird. Why was I doing that? Well, that's going to be evident in just a second. So when I'm shooting landscapes, what I like to do in the field is push my exposure to the right a little bit. I'm not overexposing, although it looks a little overexposed in this view, but the camera is actually capturing the full range of tones. And if you look at my histogram, which is this graph up here in the top right corner of my screen, this is the key right now. Nothing's clipping. So the image is brighter than it should be, but all of the tones are captured, all the way from the darkest blacks to the whitest whites. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start off by making a very simple adjustment. I'm going to move that exposure back down. Okay? Right back down to about what it would have been had it come out of the camera. Now, this is important because you can do this with landscapes because nothing's moving. And so pushing my exposure a little bit, as long as I'm not clipping the highlights, everything's fine. And I'm getting more shadow detail than I would ordinarily, okay? This is a low ISO image. I'm not gonna run any noise reduction on this today. I don't really need to. If you look at the exposure settings here, f13 ISO 100. So that's for the Z7, this is a 45 megapixel camera. I'm not really gonna have to worry about any noise here. Okay, so let's take a look and see what we can do. Now, the shot by itself has three major regions. Okay, I like to identify the regions in the photograph when I'm working on them. So I've got this mountain, these mountains, or what kind of look like mountains back here, these rock formations, these hills. And then I've got some stuff in the foreground. And then I have this sort of empty plain area, this wash here that's wiped out. I've got a sky. And then I got a few little issues. I've got some footprints here because somebody went out there, probably one of us, knowing the group. And then I've got a few dust spots. Like if we look way up in this corner, look, there's some dust bunnies hiding up there. And that happens. It's a real common problem with digital photography. So what can we do? I want to start off, rather than adjust this image in its entirety, I want to adjust this image in segments. So that, and if you were at my last session, you know what I'm talking about. I identify these regions, and I'm going to make selection masks of each area of interest so that I can go in and adjust each of those areas separately. And then I will do some finishing adjustments. And then I might polish this off by sending it into Color Effects Pro over in Photoshop. Color Effects Pro is part of the Nik collection suite of plugins, and it's the one set of plugins that I absolutely use all the time. If I had one thing, that's probably the one that I would buy in terms of creative plugins. Okay, so we're ready to mess around with this shot a little bit. So let me go in and start with masks. First part that I will do. So I'm going to open the masking panel. It's up here is this little circle with the dots around it, and that's the masking panel. I'm going to open it. And for starters, I am going to just ask it to find landscape elements. And we will see what Lightroom will do with this. So it's found the sky, found mountains, and it's found what it calls natural ground, which is basically everything else. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to make 3 masks. Create 3 separate masks. So I've checked this box here. Create 3 separate masks. So it's going to make masks, individual ones for the sky, the mountains, and the ground. Okay, and there's my natural ground. Now, I really don't want to work with this in its entirety. I want to keep the mountains separate. So here's my mountains area. Here's my natural ground area. So for me, I want to just have this part in here. So I'm going to subtract out the landscape object, the mountains. So I click subtract, landscape options, hit the mountains. Okay, now they're out. And then I'm just going to take my brush, and I'm going to say subtract with the brush. I'm just going to kind of paint out this area here. Close enough. And I'm doing this with auto masking turned on so that it more or less restricts my brush. So now I've got 3 regions. I've got this foreground region, I've got this region here, and I've got the sky. And let me just go ahead and I'm going to do one more mask because I want to treat this hill formation separately than the mountains. I'm just spitballing here, so see what we get. I'm going to go in and create a new mask, and I'm going to say select objects, and let's see what happens if I just select this huge thing here. Hey, look at that. Okay, very good. So now I've got this separate from my background mountains. I'll call this one foreground, ground hill. Okay, and then I've got my mountains, and I'm going to subtract this thing from my mountains. So let's go in here, say subtract, select objects. I know it works because I just did it. There we go. Not quite perfect, so let's clean that up by subtracting with the brush. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Subtract with the brush. I'm going to turn off auto masking so I can just erase. There, Pretty cool. So now I've got my masks. I mean, we've done this in like what, 10 minutes, that I've been online and talking to you guys. I've already made my mask. So now it's real easy for me to go in and make adjustments. So let's start with my foreground here. I want to brighten it a little bit. So I'm going to open the tone panel on my masks, and let's pop these whites a little bit. Let's add some contrast. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add some clarity. See how that brings out that zone? Okay. Now I'm going to take my little foreground hill and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add a little clarity, and I'm going to also add a little texture on this. There we go. And I'm going to give it a little bit more. Well, I'm going to hold off on the color for right now. I'm going to hold off on the color. Now I'm going to take the mountains. So that's this stuff in the background. I'm going to give them a little of this dehaze tool. I don't want to add too much clarity here because they are a background element. I don't want them dominating my foreground. I like this leading line walking in here. Maybe not with the footsteps. We'll deal with them later. Here's my sky. And for the sky, I'm going to use the dehaze tool. Now that's kind of cool. It's a little bit overly dramatic, but you get the idea. Now the dehaze tool kind of brings out some extra blue. So I'm going to take that blue out. I'm going to go back to the color panel and just dial the saturation down a teeny bit. Okay. I'm going to lower the texture in the sky as well. So I've adjusted the three regions more or less the way that I want them to look. Now it's time to go back to take care of some of these, the image on a more global level. Okay, so now I'm just out of the masking tool. I'm just back in the basic panel, and here is where I can adjust contrast, global dehaze, saturation and vibrance, although I don't need much. I've already added quite a bit. I'm going to keep this a little low. Back off on this just a little bit. Okay, now there were some problems in this image that I want to clean up first before I finish it off in my pixel editor. And my pixel editor is Photoshop, but not to use Photoshop, but to use color effects inside of Photoshop. Okay, so let me go ahead and open the remove panel. And remember I said I got two major problems. I've got footsteps in the sand here, as you can see. I want to get rid of those. And I've got dust bunnies up in the upper left corner. So let's tackle the dust bunnies first. I'm just going to go to the distraction removal panel, open up dust, and I'm going to check the visualize spots. You can look for them. And there they are. 1, 2, 3. This happens all the time. This is not bad technique or anything. This is just digital photography. You change lenses out there in the field and you get dust on things. So I'm going to just check the apply button, and it has to just go through, and it automatically, this is one of these new features in Lightroom. Look at that. They're gone. The dust spots are absolutely gone. And there they are. You can see the individual spots that it detected and removed. And if I wanted to get rid of them, or change something, I could do that if I wanted to. They are editable after the fact. And when I did my distraction removal, it's gonna tinker with my masks. You can see my little AI or my edit status is turned yellow here. So in that regard, I'm gonna have to update it. And that's normal. That happens anytime you've used AI masks and you do something like dust removal. Now let me see if I can get rid of these footsteps. So I'm going to go to the remove tool with the generative AI option on. I'm going to zoom in on the image. And I'm just going to paint out, or paint over, I should say, these offensive footprints. Try to get most of them. They're not all terrible. I'm just trying to get rid of major distractions here. Okay, missed a few over here. Clean those up. Okay, great. I'm going to click remove. And now it just does its thing. So I'm not trying to document this journalistically speaking. So if I were trying to document the scene that happened to have footprints that day, I would leave them in there. But since I'm not a photojournalist on this trip, I'm a landscape photographer, I'm just going to go ahead and see if AI can get rid of my, my footsteps there. And I asked it to do quite a bit on a large megapixel file, so it takes a little bit. And now they are pretty much gone. There's still stuff out there, but it does not look like footprints. And once again, I'm going to have to update my masks to clean that up. All right. So there's my image. It's not quite finished, but it's pretty close to being good. But you can see from the histogram, I've got a lot of space up here at the top and a little bit at the bottom. I'm going to leave that there because I want to go into color effects from the Nick collection to truly finish off this image the way I want it. So I'm going to just dial back my sharpening so I don't create any weird halos when I go into the pixel editor. And that's important because sharpening creates little halos that most of the time you can't see them. But if you go into Photoshop from Lightroom, those halos get baked in. And if you start adjusting contrast, you can accentuate them and they're nearly impossible to remove. So whenever I go into a third-party editor outside of my raw editing tool, so my raw editor is Lightroom, when I go out of Lightroom into Photoshop, into a plugin, whatever, I usually dial the sharpening back unless I'm just doing something like, you know, putting text on an image or something like that. So I'm going to open it in Photoshop, which is just Command E. And here we are. Okay, so now I'm in the Photoshop world. And I'm not in Photoshop specifically because I'm going to do something with Photoshop. I'm going to use my plugin inside of Photoshop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a mask of the sky. So I'm going to go here, select sky, because I just want to have that sky in there. I'm going to create what's called a layer group by clicking this little folder icon way down here in the bottom right of the screen. Probably can't see that. I'm in the layers panel over here. I'll make this a little bit bigger. And then I'm just going to click mask to add mask. I'm going to add another layer group. I'm going to say select sky again. I got to go back to my select the image on my layer, select sky. And I'm going to choose invert, inverse. So now it's selecting everything else. And so my group 2, I'm going to add that mask. And there it is. You can see its thumbnail. So I've got two masks. I've got this sky mask and I've got this foreground or everything else mask. And I'm just going to have those there because I can use those masks inside the Nick color effects program. I may or may not need them, but I have them there. So now I'm going to go click my background layer, and I'm going to open Nik 8 Color Effects. And I've made a preset with a bunch of filters already in it that I call my Landscape Toolbox. And then it asks me if I want to bring in my masks. I say, yes, I do. There we go. And now we're jumping into Nik. And I'm going to minimize the filters on the left side. And what you can see here is I have put, yes, we're good. Stop yelling at me, Photoshop. Okay. On the right-hand side, my preset loaded in all these filters that I like to use. I don't have to use them, and they're all zeroed out. They're not doing anything right now. So if I choose to use them, I can. I'm going to add one filter from my list that's not on this panel, and that is the clear view filter. Ooh, there it goes. I'm going to just drag it to the top of my list. Okay. I'm going to start with this clear view filter. It's because I like it. Gotta find it first. Here we go. It just gives a little bit of pop. It also kind of warms things up. I'm going to go to my Pro Contrast filter. That's the next one here. Let me collapse this other thing. Pro Contrast has got this great slider called Dynamic Contrast, which I love. And it also has a Correct Color Cast filter, which I like. Now you see the polarization filter, what it does. I'm going to just give it a little bit. I like how it gives me some contrast between the mountains, the orange here, and the blue sky. And then my last few filters that I like tonal contrast. So this allows me to adjust contrast of tone ranges. So if I want to increase contrast just in the shadows, the midtones, the highlights, you could probably figure out ways to do this in Photoshop with curves. I don't like doing that. I like just using this tool. So a little mid-tone boost. And a little bit of the highlights. Not too much. Okay. So I didn't use those masks. I could have. I just decided I didn't need to use the mask, and I don't think I need too much more going on here. I think everything here is pretty good. So I'm going to leave my global adjustments alone. So when I click apply down here at the bottom, it's going to save this as a new layer in Photoshop. And this is why I like using Nik plugins inside of Photoshop. It's because, see, if I don't like it, I can go back to my original image, but you can see the difference that it made. And if it's too strong, I can always dial it back a little bit. I can lower the layer opacity. Okay, so that's cool. I'm going to just get rid of these extra layers. And then I'm going to save the image before I exit Photoshop. I could do other things here, but I don't need to right now. I'm going to finish this back in Lightroom. Now, why would I finish this back in Lightroom? Because Lightroom's edits are always non-destructive. Therefore, if I do any sharpening, it doesn't get baked in like it would over here in the Photoshop side. So let me just close this, go back to Lightroom. Here we go. And so now what I'm going to do is just polish this off with my curves tool in Lightroom. So I've opened the tone curve. Now I'm working on this is now the Photoshop. See, it says PSD up here. This is a Photoshop document. And if I look at my film strip, sure enough, here was the the raw file that we sent to Photoshop that's in Nikon image format, the NEF, and then here is the PSD. So I'm going to go to my curve tool. I'm going to make a quick adjustment because I don't like the default positions of these curve sliders. So I made a preset a long time ago for just tweaking that. Okay. And it just resets these little pins down here on the bottom. It doesn't actually make any adjustments. I'll go to my linear curve. This is the point curve, okay? So we have a parametric curve and we have a point curve. I'm going to take the white point and just start dragging it to the left. And I'm looking at the histogram to make sure that I haven't pushed anything too far. I don't want to clip anything. So if I go too far, you see that triangle starts lighting up and it tells me, oh, look, you're blowing out those areas. So I'm going to take it all the way back to where it just barely doesn't touch anything. So I still have detail down here in these highlights. Now I can go into my parametric curve and just finish this off a little bit. Bring back my whites a little tiny bit. Okay, cool. There we go. Real minor, okay? But you can see, I'll toggle. This was before, and this is after. So I got a little more pop just by fixing the levels there, basically. And now, if I zoom in, I can decide if I want to add any more sharpening. It's pretty good, to be honest. But if I wanted to, I could add just a little bit of sharpening. All right. So now what I'm going to do is to share this, I'll go back to my print module. And there I've got my preset made with my matte, my black border. This is a print preset. I'm just going to print it instead of the printer. I'm going to print it to my file. And I'll call it Badlands whatever. Save. Yeah, I know. I got a same file name in there. Replace that. There it is. It's done. And if I go to my location, there is the photo. So now I can just go ahead and upload that to wherever I want and save it. Okay, so that was pretty fun. I hope you know, I did this slowly. That was probably one of the times where I would go maximum effort on a on an image like that. But it's that entire process. So the first thing that you don't, you know, the part that you didn't see necessarily when I'm, you know, editing a picture is the fact that my base exposure settings help me capture a better starting point image. My original capture was intended to give me the best possible information with which to work on later when I got back to post. So I'm not going out into the field trying to get something that comes straight out of the camera. I'm approaching the camera as a tool to capture pixel information, tone information, get the scene, the focus, the depth of field, get everything the way I want it. And then when I go into post, it's to make it better. Let's go back and just do a quick before and after, shall we? So let me do the screen sharing thing again. Okay. I'm going to revert that setting. Reset. There. Oops. Okay. I think it's pretty obvious at this point that you can see that I have what I start with is not what what I'm capturing in the field out there is not intended to be the finished product. The camera sees things in its own way. It applies its own contrast and color. I choose to use that as raw material that I can adjust to my liking in a program such as Lightroom or whatever raw editor you might use. I like Lightroom personally because of the masking tools and the remove tools and all those things that I showed you. So this is the kind of thing that I teach during my workshops in the field. So I want to thank everybody for attending. I know this is a little quick live, but what I did so just to put it in perspective, what I did here in 30 minutes, I could probably do in 10 minutes just working on an image. And no, I don't do this to every single one of my pictures. That's the other thing that's important to remember. You don't process every single image that you capture this way. You go through your photos, you find your best ones, and those are the ones that you process, all right? So when people talk about, I don't have time to post-process, well, I don't have time to post-process 800 images. That's not what I'm trying to do. When I'm approaching images from a fine art standpoint, like on a landscape safari, then I'm only working on, maybe 20 images, 25 images from the entire trip, maybe 30, right? So a couple over the course of a week. I don't have that many I'm really going to work on. And it's only the best ones I'm going to take through the entire process. So what I showed you today, going from Lightroom, opening it in Photoshop, you don't have to do that on every file. You could just use Lightroom and be done. A lot of times that gets you there. So I appreciate everyone for coming today. I see that there's, about 27 people here. Thank you. If you aren't subscribed to The Photographer's Perspective, please do me a favor, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. It helps me out. Obviously, I plan on doing more of these. I really enjoy being out here. So, hey, whatever keeps you in your headspace right now with everything that's been going on. And for me, being able to work on pictures, even ones that are 5 years old in this case, hey, I'm all for it. So thanks again, everybody. I truly appreciate it. And stay tuned. I'll have more of these. Don't forget, if you're a subscriber, you have access to my online class tomorrow at noon Eastern on the fundamentals of macro photography. Subscribers have access to that. Paid subscribers get access to the replays of those live classes. So consider that. And I'm out of stuff to say. So I'll see you next time, everyone. Thank you so much.